Survey started by Counselor Khan. All in favor? Carried. No reservations or public hearing. Move on to the adoption of the minutes. Can I have a motion that the June 6th, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted and presented? Councilor McCary, Councilor Khan. Carried. Any business deriving from the minutes? No correspondence, petition, one or more of these correspondence items under 21 of the agenda. Is yours? Number one, number four. One. Number four. One and number four. Okay, can I have a motion to receive that the remainder of the correspondence items be received? Councillor De Bruin, seconded by Councillor Khan. Any further? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we don't have any reports from committees. So 11.1 Downtown Revitalization and Infrastructure Plan Project Award.
Thank you, Ms. Birch-Jones. If you could please turn off your camera. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the request for proposal for the Downtown Vitalization and Infrastructure Program was issued on April 28th, 2023, and closed on May 31st, 2023. In the proposal, the district invited planning and engineering consulting firms to submit a proposal to produce a construction timeline and series of grant application-ready documents for the upgrade of municipal infrastructure, if required, and reconstruction of the portion of Main Street between 6th and 8th Avenue. The maximum budget is $125,000 and is funded entirely from the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program. This was a request for proposal and not a tender call. The intended outcome of this project is to have a realistic and actionable downtown vitalization and infrastructure plan relevant to the economic development needs of Lillooet and the communities it serves. The intent of the final project is to be a modular document with smaller, achievable projects that can be completed by a community with limited financial resources, but undertaken in a structured and holistic way to avoid duplication of work. Modules may be shovel-ready projects that can act as grant applications or next step documents that detail what additional work or studies should be completed before development of a work plan or construction document. Proposals were submitted by both McElhaney and Urban Systems. As the RFP was a fairly specific document as to the outcomes desired, both applications were quite similar. However, McElhaney balanced the infrastructure piece with the form and character aspects in their proposal, where Urban Systems took a greater focus on the infrastructure aspects. I would like to state that both proposals were excellent, but after they were reviewed by 3 staff members, McElhaney outscored Urban, albeit slightly. The district would be well served by both applicants, but McElhaney also tailored its proposal to Lillooet, including undertaking a site visit to town to demonstrate that they were aware of the on-the-ground site context that they were working in. It is staff's recommendation that council award the contract to McElhaney so that staff can begin working with them immediately to get this project underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I noticed there's a little bit of money difference here in the end. What was the difference there, Kevin?
That's just what they bid on. I'm not exactly sure why they bid so much less. I believe it was about $20,000.
It's all
Yeah.
30.
The reason that we weren't really looking too much at the funds versus what they were proposing was because it's not a tender and because it's not using any district surplus reserve funds or taxation money. So we were looking at the proposal that was within the budget constraint of the grant funding that looked like it was the best fit for Lillooet.
The question is, like this is going to take, the McElhaney is going to take care of the full 125,000 where these other guys didn't. Now, are we getting more from McElhaney than these other guys? Like you said, it was very close.
Yeah. Again, the outcome seems to be very similar from both of them from our perspective. If we were to go with Urban for the slightly less, I believe we would get just about the same amounts that we would from McElhaney. Again, it was just that the proposal from McElhaney seemed to suit Lillooet more appropriately. I also mentioned in the report that there might be some options with Urban to go with to negotiate some of the rest of the use of that funds. My concern there is that when you introduce flexibility into what is supposed to be a fixed fee and defined project, that's when you start to see scope creep. We saw this a little bit with the official community plan where it was protracted for a longer period of time because of COVID. It's expanded a little bit and we went a little over budget on that project because we didn't just agree to something, sign a contract and move on. If we don't spend this money, we have to give it back to the province anyways.
Just wondering, just what you were saying, like how much more could we get out of these guys than McElhaney in the end for that extra 30 grand?
That would be something I would have to discuss with them at that point. I could imagine that we might be able to get some standard drawings, some road construction engineered drawings out of that. Although that is something that McElhaney said that they would also be providing as well.
So we're not going to gain.
Without having the conversation, I wouldn't know, but based on the applications we received, it is staff's recommendation that McElhaney was the slightly stronger proposal.
So with it being 25% more, does this project end with McElhaney once this part is done? It doesn't go further into any more projected projects? Because I'm just worried that if it's already 25% over, if anything further would cost us.
No, it wouldn't. This RFP was specific to this project and this one deliverable. Any implementation is going to be done either by other contractors put out through RFP or tender or by district staff.
I remain puzzled, like Councillor McNary, about the slight edge that McElhaney has, but they're 30% more expensive. In staff report, it also says that if it was being funded from taxation reserves, then the district must go with the best value proposal. But I guess in this case, staff is proposing to move forward with McElhaney because it has a better feel. I still, even in that light, think that it is our obligation to provide the best value to the community, regardless where the funds are coming from. And if you spend an extra $30,000 on extra drawings, then we're getting more ultimately out of that $125,000 that is being funded ultimately by taxpayers, but not just our taxpayers. So I would, I'm still puzzled why staff would recommend if there's such a slight difference in the deliverable, but such a significant difference in expense, why I would still recommend to move forward with McElhaney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason behind that is to ensure that we know what we're getting. I believe I also mentioned in the report that we wouldn't really be able to figure out what to maybe try and spend that last bit of money on until we were towards the end of the project. So there's no guarantee that we would even get that extra value out of it. And it's on a project like this where you want a deliverable so that you can move on to implementation. You want to know where a specific end date is within the proposal that was given. McElhaney did that within the full budgeted amount. Urban Systems didn't. So we decided based on the rest of the proposals, taking out the funds. If funds weren't even an issue and they had both put in $125,000 for the whole thing, we'd still be going with suggesting McElhaney.
Where are they both from? Where are these companies located?
Urban Systems is based out of, this branch of Urban Systems is based out of Kamloops, and this branch of McElhaney is based out of Whistler.
Councillor Weed.
Through the mayor. They're both a fixed fee. So when you're saying an end date, are you saying that Urban Systems didn't give us this will all be done by August 17th, or what exactly are you referring to there? Because they're both fixed, so I can't see where the amount would run into more money.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I said that, I meant that if we're going to start negotiating with them to use those additional funds, that's going to be towards the end of the project, which may protract the length of time that they have said. And you're correct, they said sometime between May and June 2024 would be the completion date of that. But then if we start saying we want more engineer drawings at any point where we want them to expand on a module, then that's going to protract the timeline.
So when we put, question number
No,
two.
keep going. Yes.
So when you put it out for proposal, do you not specify at that time what you want? Like I'm thinking if I go on Amazon or whatever, I've got a specific, this is what I want. And
Yes.
then they bid on that. So this sounds like they both bid on exactly the same thing, including the exact same scope, but one is $30,000 higher.
Yes, and that's why I stated at the beginning that this was not a tender call, so it wasn't actually a bid, it was just a proposal. You're absolutely correct. If we just wanted to go with what they did, then I won't even try and negotiate using those extra funds, and we'll just send that money back to the province because it wasn't used for this project, and that is absolutely an okay option as well.
Keep going.
Sorry, sorry, keep going. So did they both propose the exact same thing, I guess, is the question.
Within their own language of how they present within their own style of their firms, they more or less gave me pretty much exactly what was in the proposal. They said, yes, we will give you that. It was a very detailed proposal that I put out.
Councillor Clark.
Through the mayor. My question is if deciding to go with Urban Systems, because we've got that 30,000, as you're saying, we're getting to the end of the project there, and then we want extra things, we would be reliant on their timeline then, right? So then if we said we want blah, 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 and they said, well, we could do that, but we can't do it for 6 months. Is that what we get for that? So
And it's quite possible. These consulting firms, they do take on multiple projects at once. So they're going to be budgeting their time based on the proposal that they gave us. And then if we are able to negotiate an expansion on that with those remaining funds, then it is likely that we'd have to do up another agreement, and they'd have to propose or give us another timeline for that new work. And I believe that the grant requires that this is completed by the end of December 24.
Can I ask when the next grant is coming out?
They haven't announced the dates for them yet.
Through the mayor, did we have, I'm assuming, but I'm going to ask rather than assume, that we had a good working relationship with Urban Systems, did we not, when we did the OCP, other than the COVID thing, which was unpredictable and No matter who it was, that probably.
We actually worked with Modus with the OCP, not with Urban
Okay,
Systems.
well,
yeah.
who did we work with?
Modus. Modus Consulting.
But we used Urban Systems for something.
But not in the last 4 years.
I didn't remember the name. I'm sorry.
I think
Um,
Urban Systems, did they not do the SLRD housing?
I mean, Urban Systems have done
I just,
hundreds of projects over the
Yeah,
province.
yeah.
They're a big player, so is McElhaney, which is why I feel that if you would rather go with the lower bid, Littlewood is going to be just as well served.
I make a proposal that instead of waiting to spend the 30,000 at the end, can we renegotiate with Urban Systems to say, listen, thank you for your proposal. You've won the bid. We're going to accept it, 94,000 something. In addition, we'd like to contract to you X, Y, and Z. If you can do that for 30, so that we get more for our money than
In the same time,
Yeah, so the only issue I have with that is around procedural fairness, is that if we are then, before we even issue it, are going to expand the scope of the project, then we need to give McElhaney the same opportunity to change their, so we basically have to repost the RFP.
Mr. Deneker.
I'd be throwing a little bit of a CAO's view on this as well, because I did review it. A number of senior staff reviewed this. Going back to the idea of best value, we look for best value regardless of whether it's grant funded. It's just, we're conscious of the fact that it's not hitting taxpayers in the pocket directly. Some cost more, it's provincially grant funded. But I think the value that all of us saw, all of the senior staff saw, it did seem like a slight difference between, but I think it was an important difference, is that we all saw was the softer aspects of this. And that the way that McElhaney approached this project was very on the ground and local, versus Urban Systems had their approach to it, whether it was in person versus virtual. The Urban Systems leaned towards virtual engagement. McElhaney tended towards in person, on the ground, meeting the staff and meeting stakeholders on the ground versus just surveys, teams. And they're also their team is led from a landscape architect perspective instead of an engineer's perspective, which I think from our perspective fits better and thus greater value for a community of this sort, where we don't need every last thing engineered at this point in the project. We want to make sure that the project that's developed really fits this community versus just meets the engineering requirements, where we put a pipe, build this thing out, and the community ends up going at the end of the day, well, the pipes look great, but the town doesn't look great. Right, so it's the different focus that the teams have.
So McElhaney came here.
McElhaney has staff in the region. They came here to actually investigate in order to put together the project for Urban Systems. So there's also that very personal aspect that they brought to this proposal.
is it worth $30,000 in your mind?
I think in the engagement with the public, it will. I think they'll notice it. That's why I would say unanimously the staff will review this. And yes, it's more expensive, but they're being more explicit about how they're engaging with the public. Number of workshops, open houses, and meeting with council to discuss it in a couple of days. Urban will, of course, do some engagement and come talk to council, but it's more virtualized. I think we're all tired of this. And some other things I noticed, these, maybe digging the details more through Kevin, is that Urban Systems seemed to assume that we would be adding extra money ourselves into the engineering investigations that they would need done in order to provide the recommendations. McElhaney was either assuming that we had the data, much of it, which we do, or that they would work it into the project itself, which could be why the price is higher, is that they didn't get into the details of it. They were simply assuming they would do the inspections for the cameras, the pipes and such things. Whereas Urban was saying, no, we're not including that. That's the price difference.
So we are actually getting more bang for our buck.
I think both some of the engineering aspects and definitely in engagement. Out of it, it's going to be something
Any further questions? A scratch,
Um,
edge, or a question?
I'm just, through the mayor, I'm just wondering, like, do we have a spec sheet or something that we go down when we're doing these things? You know, like you get 10 for that, 3 for this, and I'm just curious.
Yes, there is a scoring. It's not super detailed, but there is a scoring so that those of us who are reviewing the documents are on the same page about what we're looking for. For instance, Ian McIntosh, who is our contract planner, he scored McElhaney at 70 and Urban at 65. So I think they're very close.
Just joking.
And
Okay.
just so that the public is aware, these haven't been provided to you because they are kind of trade
Right.
secret documents. And that's protected under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information Act. And was put explicitly in the in both of their submissions.
All right. Can I have a motion that the contract to complete the downtown vitalization and infrastructure plan project for the District of Lillooet be awarded to McElhaney Limited? Okay, Councillor McNary, seconded by Councillor Weed. Is there any further questions on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Very unanimous. Okay, 12.1, Z 23-005, zoning amending bylaw number 2023-012 to rezone 1003 Main Street from C1 to RM. Mr. Taylor?
Okay, well, we're just going to use it this way for the sake of time. Thank you. So Z 23-005 is a request to rezone the property at 1003 Main Street from core commercial to multifamily residential. According to the official community plan, this property has the future land use designation of multifamily residential. This means that it is suitable for housing that has more than one household, such as apartments, townhouses, or duplexes. The current use of the property is as a single family residential use and previously contained the veterinary offices in the second building at the rear, which is currently vacant. The owner of the property has applied to rezone it to RM, or residential multifamily, which is consistent with the OCP. Staff have reviewed the rezoning application of no concerns or objections. If the property is rezoned to RM, the existing detached dwelling unit can remain as a non-conforming permitted use. However, if the property is redeveloped in the future, any new structures would have to comply with the current zoning bylaw at the time. The new zoning bylaw will likely not allow a single detached dwelling at this address, but rather some form of multifamily building consistent with the OCP density requirements. Staff recommends giving bylaw 2023-012 first and second reading and scheduling a public hearing. This will allow us to hear from the public and other stakeholders about this rezoning proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Councillor McNary?
Kevin, on this, you said there was something that they wouldn't allow. Was that a new building, or is that the building was there, like the building that's there, the old, that building?
Mm-hmm.
They could make that residential also? I just missed what you said there when you were talking. I read it. You said you wouldn't allow.
I said,
something-
however, if the property is redeveloped in the future, any new structures would have to comply with current zoning.
Something else. But they could make a dwelling out of that old vet house as it is, like if we change this now.
Under building permit and perhaps with some variances due to its proximity to the property lines. It would be a change of use. It was a commercial use originally. Right now, it's basically a detached accessory structure to the primary use, which is the house.
This rezoning would preclude the old structure being used as commercial again.
Yes. Yes, the structure, I believe, has not been a commercial use for a period of longer than 6 months. That's when legal nonconformity goes away, or grandfathering. And once it's rezoned to RM, commercial is no longer a permitted use. It could continue to be one of those accessory uses within that zone. In the new, again, I mentioned in the OCP, this whole stretch of property has now gone from commercial to multifamily. So likely in the next version of the zoning bylaw, we're going to be looking at rezoning all of these to multifamily anyways, in order to support development of those multifamily buildings along that stretch.
But this is in the same stretch as the Jones's Market, isn't it?
Yes.
Jones's Market across the street?
No, it's on the same side.
Oh, it's on the same side. Okay. And then Jones's Market is going to get rezoned to resident multi RM.
Because of the development that's happening on there right now within the commercial zone, what I'm actually going to be proposing is doing an OCP amendment to that particular lot, and then putting on there mixed use, like a neighborhood commercial zone specific to that lot, since it's already been developed that way. And as it's a new building, I'm not going to recommend making it non-conforming right off the bat.
Because it's commercial on the bottom, multi on top.
That is correct, and that's a good thing to have in neighborhoods, especially when you're going higher density. There's now that service there for hopefully all those future multifamily homes within an already serviced area.
Through the mayor, but it does mean that Jones's Market will then be the only commercial building in that stretch, because all the others will be RM or whatever. So there won't be any commercial other use or other buildings in that stretch.
That is correct.
So if this property wanted to come back, they could do a variance to have a commercial, no, they would have to do a zoning
Yeah.
to have it back to commercial property with a multi.
And if it turns out that there's an economic swing and that there's a call for that much more commercial, then absolutely council can always consider an OCP zoning amendment at any time. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But under the current OCP just adopted 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, it does suggest that all of this is slated for multifamily. Just Jones's Market got their building permit in and it is still commercial. And having those units above a commercial building is appropriate in this zoning bylaw.
Any further questions, Councillor Weed?
Through the mayor. So, in the write-up here, it says that they're not proposing a new development. This is just to make it easier for mortgage or resale or.
I'm not sure. It's
Yeah.
a lot of people in the commercial zone have been having trouble getting mortgages. Now, because it's commercial, even though single family dwelling right now is a permitted use in the C1 zone. If they were just asking, and their original ask was to go to R1, and the response was, we don't rezone property for that purpose. But since this is looking to go to what the future vision for that community is to RM, which we're likely going to be going to anyways, we didn't see any reason to oppose this request.
Any further questions? Okay, I will call the question. Will someone please make a motion that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454 amending bylaw number 2023-012 be introduced and read a first and second time, and that a public hearing be scheduled, and further that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act. Councillor Weeb, seconded by Councillor Plant. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay, 12.2, said 23, the sex official community plan amending bylaw number 2023 amending bylaw number 2023.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As with N 23-006, is a request to partially rezone a property at 18.4 Highway 99 North from agriculture to rural residential 1. This also involves the OCP amendments over that specific portion of land, which it has a modified upward. 18.4 Highway 99 North covers all the farming while others are seen as more challenging. The property is divided into two sections by the agricultural land reserve. This section is 5.8 hectares and it has outside the reserve. 7 hectares. The main section from agriculture to rural residential so that they can investigate subdividing it into smaller lots. This means that the property can have two different zones, which locally is split zoning. However, this all currently doesn't. These days that the RR any potential development would be limited by the ability to service these lots and would be determined by the applicant's engineer to the satisfaction of the approving officer at the time of subdivision. The applicants have stated that they would like to investigate bringing water under the bridge to service the subdivision. Beyond the cost of this, the owners would need to petition to enter the water service area, which would also need to include other properties along the extension to agree. And council would also have to be willing to adopt the additional infrastructure and associated burden. The OCP does state that new residential development should be contained within the growth priority area. However, this does not limit large lot rural development. The intent of this growth priority area section is to maximize existing infrastructure rather than continuing sprawl. As Lillooet is in need of housing, and despite the challenges in servicing these lots, staff are supporting this rezoning application to proceed to public hearing. Should there be support or no opposition, staff would recommend that council give third reading but not adopt the bylaw. This will give the owners assuredness that the bylaw is approved in principle and they can continue with their investigations and apply for subdivision. Once the approving officer is satisfied that the lots can be created and serviced appropriately, staff will return to council with a recommendation to adopt the bylaw or to defeat the bylaw at fourth reading if they're not able to support their subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
Another question through the mayor. There's in the report, there's a suggestion made, I think, have an agriculturologist report done. Is that something is that part of the decision that we're making today, or is that something that will come back at a later point?
Madam Mayor, thank you. If council does want to make that a requirement of the rezoning, absolutely, we can discuss that today. It could also be done in between first reading and second reading if council just wants to get first reading today and request some other additional information. If they were looking to develop within the agricultural land reserve, staff would have already asked for this and not have brought it forward. So it is up to council, as the OCP is not supportive of removing farmland. However, our opinion was that if it were viable, it would have been included in the agricultural land reserve when it was created, and didn't want to impose that at a staff level.
Councilor Weed.
Through the mayor, I hate to see any agricultural land go anywhere, but The way it sits now, when you're talking about these derelict vehicles and auto salvage use, is there nothing that can be done about that while it's zoned the way it is? Or, but I know we can deal with it once we rezone, right?
We could deal with that before a public hearing,
Right.
if you wanted to, or you could say it would be a requirement of that final adoption, absolutely.
But they're not using it as agriculture land right now.
No,
It's not in the agriculture.
sorry, but it's zoned agricultural
It's
currently.
zoned
So
agriculture.
that's the difference between the ALR, which is the provincial body, which sets the boundaries for lands that must be used for agriculture, versus a zoning designation of agriculture, which is the municipality saying something has to be used for agriculture. But it's much easier to change the zoning than to change the ALR.
I would really like to see something in there about, like Councilor Bruin said, plus also these derelict vehicles, like that, the timing. I don't know, maybe it needs to go to public hearing first, but I'd like that step in there somewhere.
Councilor Burke.
We're talking about a property that is my view from my office. And I can tell you that it is a very steep hill that you're looking at.
Mhm.
And while I'm not an agrologist, I think it would be very unlikely that you could grow anything on that steep hillside without creating issues for the highway below. And the grade is, you can see from the elevation maps, the grade is very steep, and it's only used for by deer to go back and forth. I see many of them. But yeah, so that hence my question was more like, are we really going to ask for a agrological report? Because I don't think that's fair, just because this part of the property was excluded from the ALR because it has no agricultural value. And up top there is, but not on the slope side. From what I've gathered of this portion, there's about 2 acres that's actually flat, and
Really?
where you can situate a home. And so I would not be supportive of putting a burden on the homeowner to get an agrologist report.
I would just like to see the derelict vehicles. I
Madam-
need to see it being a salvage.
And Madam Mayor, as part of the subdivision or the final part of the rezoning, they would have to bring the lot into conformance with their new zoning. They're not existing non-conforming buildings on there. The storage of derelict vehicles has never been a permitted use. So they would have to remove those illegally non-conforming uses from the property before we would bring it back for adoption. But I do have to agree with Councillor De Bruin after doing a number of agricultural rezonings in the Okanagan and reading through a number of agrologist reports. Piece of land like this is usually deemed favorable for other uses.
Councilor Kwan.
So where the house and the outbuilding and what Councillor Reed was talking about, that is actually in the ALR, correct?
It is
Yeah,
correct.
and it's the other part that is just zoned as agriculture.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes planners forget that there's a topography reality when we're putting zoning over land, and we just look down at it and go, that's big. And then slap bag on it because it's also right adjacent to the ALR. But it is absolutely the right to come forward and I think that the higher and better use of the land. The concern again, the Ruben touched on this with developing kind of agriculture here. And you're using a lot of work from the land, you're using a lot of water, and that is very.
Okay, well, somebody please move District of Lillooet Community Plan 2020-040, amending bylaw 2023-014 be introduced to grant the first and second time. District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454, amending bylaw number 2023-013 be introduced to grant the first and second time. That a public hearing be scheduled for District of Lillooet bylaws 2023-014 and 2023-013, and that staff get notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act. Councillor McNary, Councillor Bruin, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, 12.3 step code, scripted path, building bylaw 2021-006, amending bylaw number 2023-008.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is just adoption of the building bylaw amendments that we gave for the pre-reading to the last meeting. Just for refreshing memory, this is not adding anything else. Any other requirements to builders, it is actually giving them another option and possibly giving us the option to give them to staff recommending this bylaw be adopted.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, will somebody please move that the building bylaw 2021-006, amending bylaw number 2023-008 be adopted. Councillor DeBruin, seconded by Councillor Klan. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. 12.4, Growing Communities Fund Reserve. Who's taking this one on?
Thank you, Mayor. This is just, as Kevin just had adoption of the bylaw that was introduced to council at the last meeting and given first 3 readings to set up a legislated reserve for the just under $1.3 million in Growing Communities grant funding that we got, which is a requirement of the funding that it have its own reserve fund set.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, will somebody please move that the Growing Communities Reserve Establishment Bylaw number 2023-010 be adopted? Councillor Weeb, seconded by Councillor McNary. All in favor? Notice of motion, the gate at the cemetery, Councillor Klan. Floor is yours.
Not really sure how I'm doing this, so I'm just going to talk. When I was at the cemetery on May 21st, I noticed that the gates to the cemetery are in a really sad state of disrepair. There's visible rust, there's paint chips, there's loose and missing hinges. Actually, one side of the gate is actually held together by nylon rope at the top of it. The hinge is completely missing and the gate is just pretty much unstable. They're really hit home though with opening the gates and the horrendous squeal and scream that it made just opening the gates. Yeah, it needs some repair. It also diminishes the whole look of the cemetery, and it does compromise the security there a little bit with the gates being able to fall off or being left open there. And it's not really showing any respect to the deceased or any of the families that have put their loved ones to rest there or are putting them to rest. So I'd like to propose the motion. Do I read it? That a cost estimate for the repair of the front gate at the Lillooet Cemetery be presented to council for budget considerations and prioritization.
Should have a seconder. So McNary. Any further questions? Councillor DeBruin.
Through the mayor, question to staff. Would this repair not fall under our regular repair maintenance budget of the public works or cemetery department or subdivision or things?
In terms of budget, it may fit under operations. Take an examination of just how bad it is, what level of repairs we want to do with it. Ideally, build back better. So it's possible we could look at an option to actually prevent it from becoming a disrepair this badly. Or if it's so bad and such a terrible state, we may look at options of just simply fixing it in an open position, but improved, and using some other form of cost-effective gate for actual security. But that's what we look into back to council to give the different funding options for this one.
Councillor McNary.
I'm gonna stick up for Patty a little bit. I have personally repaired those gates about 15 times. They're beyond repairing much more. I think that, it needs to be reconstructed. A different hinge system put on or something. Everything is too rusted out to do much more with it. And that's been the problem in the last couple, 3 years. I would suggest that if we're gonna put a bid out or something like that, would be more realistic, better bang for our buck than keep monkeying around.
That's what I suspect.
I'd like to say, like with the hinges, one hinge looks like it is just like a regular door hinge that has been screwed on one side. And the other one, the hinge is completely gone and it's just regular nylon rope that has been tried to keep the gate kind of this instead of this.
They need to put a new post in. From there. Or a couple.
I have a question too, and further beyond the gate, I've noticed that the grave headstones are sinking. So is that done by staff or is that done by students? Because I know in the past, historically, we've had, when we've hired the summer students, they've gone in there and done that, so.
Lifted them up.
Yeah, lifted them up, so one in particular is about that far sunk, so you, I mean, it's, and if the grass isn't mowed right away, you know, you walk over it and it's,
Yeah, that
and
is,
some of them.
that is something that should be part of regular maintenance. I imagine these students just because of the workload of the parks. And the discussion of some parks duties where they apply whether it remains in public works or goes to parks and recreation. That's some of that is still ongoing. Cemetery is one of them. Figure out where the best use of time is for existing staff.
I know that wasn't included in the data, just thought I'd throw it in as a question. Okay. So we have a proposal.
I'd like to hear you. Please.
Just that the cost estimate for the repair of the front gate at the Lillooet Cemetery be presented to council for budget considerations and prioritization.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, reports from mayor. Okay, Mr. Deniger and I met with BC Hydro Wednesday. There will be impacts on the community, and I hope that BC Hydro mayor, council, and staff will work towards benefits that this community deserves. The tax deadline is coming, so please don't forget to apply for the homeowners grant program online through gov.bc.ca. Grant, or you can actually call the number 1-888-355-2700. The ministry will also send you an email that you can check the steps of your application. So the date is July 4th, but I went on there and it was Thursday, Friday, and I did my homework application, and then I went back onto my email this morning and I still have to. So that's how I crazy. So I don't recommend waiting until July 4th to apply for that. July 1st is County Canada Day. There will be a gathering in downtown the museum from 11 to 2. We'll have hot dogs, pop music, cake, for face paint for kids. And I'm assuming that the rec center can provide a few tables and some chairs. The floor, the stage. Well, I think they're coming out from the museum, is there not? Okay. Thanks, everybody. Hope for good weather and a good turnout.
I was supposed to ask for that through Gary. I think they're gonna do that. Yeah, they need something to put their gear on. For me today, we're at, so that's what
I know that we had concerns about the volunteers and everything, and Walter and this really great. Okay, that's it.
I'm happy to announce that Golden did a task to ensure that current projects are properly wrapped up and a new budget plan is drafted to the board preference. Then on Wednesday, June 14th, I attended the public open house at the rec center organized by BC Hydro. Where we learned about workers that are looking for accommodation. That the workers that are going to be working on the BC Hydro projects in this region. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. June 9, I participated in the second annual Lillooet Pride Parade. It was well attended. It was great to see so many community members and allies showing their support for our LGBTQ2 plus community. That is a mouthful. There were lots of people there walking, all ages, rainbow flags, banners, costumes. It was really well attended. Honestly, it's nice to see our community celebrating our diversity and inclusivity in our town, in the community, and it was really good to see our commitment to acceptance and equality here. June 14 as well, I attended the BC Hydro open house at the rec center. They had some really great project boards, great information. I spoke to a few of the BC Hydro reps at the meeting and had some pretty good conversations about our businesses, accommodation, tourism, transportation, the boat ramp, and also maybe some legacies. And then something for just tomorrow. Tomorrow is National Indigenous.
On June 9th, I did we are also having Thank you.
Here, the whole meeting, the application. Their application. The council meeting or this is the last chance of council wants to discuss any particular hot topics that you put together an application for. Or an email, simply need the title and brief background and subject of what the application is of the county.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I am. Is that we have to request a meeting with the ministry, and when we get it, we can opt out for a private meeting outside UBC, which gives us a little bit more time. But that's, we're not doing that. Is there any particular industry that you would like to? Yes, I'm going, industries that you want to, see, yeah, and just forward them on to Jeremy in the coming week.
If I go, I'd like the Ministry of Health.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that yet.
Will you be?
Whenever
Do
the
you know?
government gets their shit together.
The year through.
I did ask, didn't I? Okay.
3020.
Councilor Reed.
I will not be going, like I say, due to some medical things. I can share that the SOGA ministries, they're going for housing, environment and climate, interior health, and road highway safety. Okay. So, and there was some feedback from a few of the members that they felt that they got more action from their requests when they met with staff than the actual official minister that just kind of shakes your hands and yeah, because it's past the staff anyway. And that was just what they were sharing.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just through you to Councilor McNary, it would be good to know sooner rather than later, just so I can either cancel or offload the hotel rooms. Otherwise, we'll be paying for a nice empty room in Vancouver.
Offload the hotel room, I'll deal with it if I go.
Lily night. We get a super good deal.
Yeah, I know, it's
You
just,
may
that
not.
I don't
Just
know
saying.
when I'm going to know for sure.
I will talk with you outside of the council meeting and figure out when the actual cancellation date is. And then
Okay.
For that.
That's fair enough, you bet.
Okay, anything further on that? Do I need a motion? So let's go back to 9.1 correspondence, in which we pulled number 1, 2023 IH heat and smoke letter. Let's do that one first.
Yes.
Councilor DeBruin.
Then you get through the mayor where, I don't know. I just wanted to make note of the fact that in this letter, there is indeed a link to a air quality map. And I would like to point out that Lillooet's not on that map. And I was just curious from staff if there's any progress of getting an air quality monitoring station in Lillooet.
If not, move that forward.
That's it.
Any timeline?
Do I need to make a motion to receive that, or can I do it?
Receive the 2 and 3.
Okay, thank you. All right, and number 4, BC Hydro VRTP project update.
Yeah, so this is the SL, or sorry, there's a hydro line that runs straight through our town. And let me just get to it, sorry. The 2L90 runs from Bridge River Station along Seton Lake to Lillooet and then north of Kelly Lake. So it runs straight through our community. And the letter outlines that they're going to increase their transmission capacity along the line. I would like to learn more about what that means. If that means that they're going to expand the number of poles, or one that is going to remain the same. Increasing transmission capacity can also be done by increasing the temperature or the admitted rating of the temperature from 50 degrees currently to 90 degrees is what their 2017 report indicates. 90 degrees is a temperature where wildfire hazards increase considerably. And this is a line that runs sort of
Uptown here.
Yeah. And so with those things, I would like to learn more about this so that we can properly be informed of what this means. I'm sure there's statutory right-of-ways that have been granted to BC Hydro for these transmission lines, but I'm curious what the limitations of the right-of-ways are, whether or not it just allows them to have transmission lines, or if they want to increase capacity, that they need to come back to amend the right-of-ways or something. I'm not really sure how that works, but yeah, I would like to know more about this if possible.
I like that. I think they could put more wire in, and then instead of increasing the heat.
I'm certainly not a linesman expert, but all I know is that in California, a lot of the wildfires were caused by transmission lines. And given our climate here, it's good to be prudent about these things.
Figure it out.
So does he have to make a motion to request or no? Okay.
Staff will take that as direction unless there's any objections from the rest of council. We'll just reach out to BC Hydro and ask them to provide some additional information.
Okay. Sure. But I do need a motion that the IHE and letter and also the BC Hydro project update be received. So you done on the plan. Carried. All right, medium of the question period. Any questions? I'll need a motion that the District of Lillooet Council be close to the public pursuant to the community charter provisions, Section 91C, labor relations and other employee relations. Councillor Flynn, second by Councillor Weed. All in favor? Carried. Take a 10-minute break.